From the outside, the Okoro compound in ABA looked like any other working-class home: cracked walls, a sagging roof, and a rusted gate that creaked each time it swung open. But it wasn't the walls that were broken, it was the people inside. 12-year-old Adiz sat on the wooden bench in front of the house, her tiny legs swinging idly as she tried to finish her math homework. The charcoal-colored evening breeze brought with it the smell of burning firewood and fried akara from Momankechi's roadside shop. Adiz's brows furrowed as she counted silently on her fingers. Inside the house, chaos reigned. Her mother, Cecilia, paced the kitchen shouting into a phone while her voice echoed down the narrow corridor. "I know fit come now. Dem don increase fuel price again, how I go take afford she barked. Abeg, I dey busy jer. Call me later." She slammed the phone down and lit a cigarette, the smoke curling like unanswered prayers toward the ceiling. Her eyes met Adiz through the kitchen window, empty, as if motherhood had long since become a burden too heavy to carry. Adiz turned back to her book, pretending not to notice. She knew better. Her father, a long-distance trailer driver, was barely home. And when he was either drunk or asleep. Their elder brother, Chijioke, had dropped out of school 2 years earlier and now moved with boys who wore torn jeans and carried stories in whispers, stories of courtism, fraud, and things Adiz didn't quite understand. That left Adiz and her little brother Ebuka, just 7, to raise themselves in a world that was too fast, too mean, and far too quiet about the things that really mattered. The first time Uncle K came to the house, Adiz thought he looked like a pastor. His white shirt was so crisp it could cut paper, and he drove a black Mercedes that glimmered like oil under sunlight. Her mother was laughing too much that day, loud, fake laughter that didn't reach her eyes. "Children, greet Uncle K," Cecilia shouted, nudging them forward. "Good afternoon, sir," Adiz and Ebuka chorused. "Oh, the good children." Uncle K smiled. His eyes rested on Adiz for just a second too long. She looked down. By his third visit, he knew their names. By the 5th, he knew when their mother left for her second job. And by the 7th, he came when no one was home but Adiz. That day, he brought her shawarma, a cold martina, and a smile that twisted her stomach into knots. "Your mommy asked me to bring you this," he said. "She said you like sweet things, eh?" Adiz hesitated. Something felt off. But she was hungry. And tired. And lonely. She took it. And that was the beginning. What happened that day, and the many that followed, would never be spoken of. Not to her mother, who only cared that Uncle K was helping with the rent. Not to her father, who wouldn't even notice if she disappeared. Not even to Chijioke, who had become a shadow in the house. But it showed, in the way Adiz stopped singing to herself, in the way she flinched when someone touched her shoulder, and in the way she cried quietly in the bathroom every night after everyone had fallen asleep. Uncle K kept coming. Sometimes he brought gifts. Sometimes he took things. "Always," he said, "don't tell anybody." And she never did. Not until Ebuka saw him. Not until her 7-year-old brother saw the door open, and what lay behind it. Ebuka didn't understand what he saw. Not at first. But he knew it was wrong. He knew his sister's eyes were red, her voice shaky, and that she didn't smile like before. He told Chijioke. It was the one good thing Chijioke ever did. He stole his mother's small Nokia phone and planted it under Adiz's bed the next time Uncle K visited. And what that video captured, raw, grainy, heartbreaking, was the beginning of the end. Chijioke ran to the police. They didn't believe him. Then he posted it online. He didn't ask anyone's permission. But by dawn, the internet did what the police wouldn't. #Justice for Adiz. #Stop child exploitation. #Where are the parents? Those were the hashtags. The video went viral. It reached bloggers in Lagos, women's rights groups in Abuja, and even international NGOs. Angry voices rose in the comments, but so did questions. Where was the mother? Where was the father? How could this happen in broad daylight? Cecilia collapsed when she saw it. Addis watched it too, silently, and when it ended, she whispered, "Now they believe me." Chijio cried that night, not for what had happened, but because he knew he should have noticed sooner. He had been so caught up in his own anger that he missed the silent screams of his sister. Uncle K was arrested. Denied it all. But the evidence was too strong. Too damning. The media circles exploded, and suddenly, everyone wanted to be Addis' protector. But the damage had already been done. Cecilia couldn't leave the house for 3 weeks. Not because of shame had long packed its bags and left, but because angry neighbors had begun whispering loud enough for her to hear. She knew. Don't tell me she didn't know. Who leaves small children at home with strange men? She sold her daughter for rent money. Wicked woman. Each word sliced her spirit open, even though she tried to pretend she didn't care. She sat in her faded wrapper in the dark sitting room, drinking dry gin from a plastic cup. The generator outside hummed lazily, but inside her head, everything was loud. For the first time, she thought of the night Addis bled and told her it was from playing too roughly. For the first time, she remembered that the girl never looked her in the eye anymore. She remembered brushing off the signs, too busy hustling to listen. She wanted to blame poverty. She wanted to blame her husband. But deep down, she knew she had neglected her children. Addis wouldn't speak to her. Not one word. Not even the day the welfare officers came. 2 cars pulled up in front of the compound, one black, one white, with tinted windows and government plates. From them emerged 3 women dressed smartly in Ankara jackets with ID tags. Their eyes scanned the Okoro house like forensic scientists. They were from the Ministry of Women Affairs and Child Welfare. "We are here for the girl," the one in the middle said simply. "No," Cecilia murmured. "She's my daughter. You can't just take her." The woman didn't blink. "And where were you when she needed a mother?" Cecilia collapsed to her knees. Addis, holding Ibuka's tiny hand, stepped out from behind the curtain. Her school uniform looked too big on her now. Her eyes were swollen but dry. She didn't say goodbye. She just walked past her mother and entered the car. Chijioke tried to follow. "They said I can't live with her in the shelter," he told the social worker. "But I'm her brother." "You're also 17 and under investigation for cult affiliation," the woman said quietly. He stepped back, broken. Addis found herself in a girls' rescue shelter in Enugu, not a prison, but not quite home. The staff were kind, the food was warm, and nobody touched her without permission. That was new. They assigned her a counselor named Auntie Miriam, who spoke in a soft voice and let Addis draw instead of talk. And for the first time, Addis began to feel again, not just fear, but anger, grief, and eventually, a tiny drop of hope. She was invited to speak on a televised youth panel titled Voices of the Silenced, hosted by one of Nigeria's biggest influencers. The producers asked if she wanted a makeup artist or stylist. She said no. She came as she was, raw, young, and painfully honest. That night, over 8 million Nigerians watched a 12-year-old survivor calmly say, "He hurt me, but so did the people who were supposed to protect me. Poverty didn't do this. Silence did." The world cried. Sponsors called. NGOs offered scholarships. But Addis didn't care about fame. All she wanted was peace. Back in ABA, the Okoro house fell apart. Cecilia lost her job after the video surfaced and customers stopped coming to the bar where she worked. Her husband, once the loudest man in the room, stopped speaking entirely. He drank in silence until his liver failed 6 months later. Chijioke, caught between guilt and survival, got arrested for armed robbery after joining a gang in Owerri. The house, once full of careless noise, now sat silent, like it was holding its breath for forgiveness that would never come. And still, the neighbors whispered. "Did you hear the government took both kids? Poor things. They didn't stand a chance." One woman, Mama Nkechi, shook her head and said, "No child is born broken. It's us adults who fail them." Her words hung in the air like judgment. In a quiet school compound in Abuja, Adiz now walked with her books pressed to her chest. She was in JSS 3 now, thriving in a private school sponsored by a Swiss-based foundation. She had started writing short stories, mostly fiction, but always with the shadow of truth lingering behind each sentence. One of them was titled, "The House with No Curtains." It was read by her English teacher, then submitted to a national contest. She won. The prize was a cash grant and a meeting with the Minister of Education. Adiz didn't understand the fuss, but her counselor cried. And for the first time in years, Adiz smiled, not because someone told her to, but because she felt it. That night, she told Auntie Miriam something she hadn't told anyone. "I don't want revenge. I want change. I want to speak for girls who are still in that room. Still scared. Still silent." And Auntie Miriam whispered, "Then speak, my child. And don't stop speaking." It had been nearly 2 years since Adiz left the Okoro house in ABA, but some wounds take longer to fade, and some ghosts, she would soon learn, don't stay buried. The letter arrived at the shelter. It came through the welfare office and was handwritten in crooked Igbo script. "My daughter. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I failed you. But please, I'm dying. I just want to see you one last time before the doctors say it's too late. Mama." The social workers debated. Auntie Miriam was hesitant. But Adiz, now 14, didn't flinch. "I'll go," she said. She didn't say it to forgive. She said it to face her past, to show it that she was no longer a victim. The hospital in ABA smelt like bleach, sweat, and something sad. The air was thick with suffering. Cecilia lay on a rusted iron bed in the general ward, her face gaunt, her once vibrant eyes hollow. Tubes snaked around her body, but her hands still trembled when she saw Adiz walk in. "My baby," she whispered. Adiz didn't move. "I should have protected you." Adiz said nothing. "I thought feeding you was enough. I thought paying the rent meant I was doing my job." "Mama," Adiz said quietly. "You didn't listen. I was scared. You were selfish." Silence filled the space like fog. But then, a small movement. Cecilia wept. Not the loud, performative sobs of a market woman, but the quiet, choking kind of cry that meant something had finally broken inside. Adiz sat down. She didn't hold her hand. But she stayed. For 1 hour. Then she got up, walked out, and never looked back. 2 weeks later, Cecilia died. And that was how her mother left this world, not with glory, but with guilt. At the burial, only a handful of people came. Chijioke wasn't one of them. He was in Kuch prison, serving a 7-year sentence. Adiz stood beside the small wooden casket, watching as the soil swallowed what was left of her mother. She wasn't sure what to feel. A journalist tried to sneak a photo. She stared him down. That evening, Auntie Miriam asked her if she was okay. Adiz said, "I think I'm finally starting to feel light." Then she handed her a folded piece of paper. It was a poem. "Let the silence burn. They said I should be quiet. That it would keep the peace. But silence is a forest fire. That consumes all the trees. I wasn't saved by pity. I wasn't saved by screams. I was saved by a brother's courage. And a world that finally believed." Months later, Adiz's story was adapted into a short film, House Without Curtains. It aired on Africa Magic and sparked a countrywide debate. Talk shows, radio stations, churches, schools. Everybody was talking. But the real power came when she was invited to address the National Assembly's Committee on Child Protection and Domestic Abuse. She stood in her school uniform before men in agbadas and women in blazers. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She read a speech titled, "You can't beat a child into silence and expect her to grow whole." When she was done, the room was silent. And then, they stood. Not all of them. But enough. Enough to know she had shaken the room. The next month, a new bill was proposed, the Addis Child Protection and Awareness Act, a national policy that would mandate background checks on domestic visitors in vulnerable households, school-based trauma counseling, and fast-track prosecution of child molestation cases. It was only the beginning. But beginnings mattered. Just as Addis began to breathe, to live again, an unexpected letter arrived. This time, it was from Kuj prison. From Chijioke. Dear Ada, I don't deserve your attention, but I beg you to read this. There's something you need to know about Uncle K. Something the police missed. He wasn't acting alone. There's a bigger network. And I think I know who's running it. Chijioke. Addis' hands trembled for the first time in over a year. She took the letter to Auntie Miriam, who immediately called the authorities. That night, Addis sat by her window, wide-eyed, heart pounding. She had thought it was over. But the truth? The real war was just beginning. The authorities took Chijioke's letter seriously. With his help, a special task force traced connections between Uncle K and a network of men exploiting poor children in the Southeast and South-South. It wasn't just about one predator, it was about a system of silence, greed, and broken homes. A man named Chief Onuyudo, a respected business tycoon and philanthropist, was arrested. Turns out, he'd been funding youth empowerment programs that served as cover for exploitation. 3 pastors, 2 school proprietors, and a commissioner were indicted. Addis didn't attend the trials, she didn't want to see their faces. But she read every verdict. Guilty. 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 And when the judge said, "This court condemns the decades of silence surrounding the abuse of vulnerable children. Let this ruling be the beginning of change," she smiled quietly in her room. Justice was possible. It just needed someone to start speaking. On her 16th birthday, Addis stood before a crowd of young girls in Lagos at a United Nations Youth Summit. Her hair was braided with gold beads. Her dress was simple. Her voice, unshakable. "I'm not here today because I was lucky. I'm here because I survived what many don't. I was once a little girl in ABA with a torn school uniform. Begging a mother too tired to listen. Screaming in a house where no one noticed. But now I speak so that no girl or boy ever feels that forgotten again." She received a standing ovation. Later that night, back at the shelter, one of the younger girls, tiny, barely 10, tugged her hand and whispered, "Can I be like you when I grow up?" Addis smiled. "No," she said. "You'll be better." This story is not just Addis. It is the story of thousands of children in Nigeria and across the world who suffer in silence, not because evil wins, but because good people look away. Parental negligence is not always loud. Sometimes, it looks like endless hustle. Sometimes, it sounds like, "I'm too tired to talk." But when we stop listening, predators begin speaking louder. This story teaches us that a child's silence is not peace. Being poor is no excuse to stop protecting. Boys suffer too. Speak for them. Change begins with one voice, yours. Let this be a wake-up call. Speak. Act. Protect. Because silence has a price. Kindly subscribe, like, and comment for more interesting stories.